Hello, guys and gals. Welcome back to another episode of the 2 a.m. podcast. Today we have our favorite guest of all time, Mr. Chang.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, dude. So before we get into anything, Mr. Kai, I know you're working on a book,
Yes, sir.
and you're filled with lots of wonderful and amazing ideas, some that I still remember to this day after talking to you for minutes at a time. So tell us a little bit more about that and to the audience exactly
Sounds
what's
good.
what's
So
what's
the
happening.
book, so the book I'm working on is called The Favor Bank, and the premise of it is that we all have a financial ledger, obviously, of all the money we've made in our life, less the money we've spent, and there's also a interpersonal ledger that I think we would be mindful. It'd be good to grow and expand of all the solids we've done for others, less times we've had to ask others for help, and that this secondary ledger, this favor ledger, is something that, just like your financial balance, grows. It can be spent wisely to help the people you love. It can be invested. It can be squandered. And so, how do you manage it? How do you build? Because all of us, we are the beneficiaries of people who invested in us when we weren't in the position to necessarily transactionally return the same value at the time, right? The extreme example is parents. Like parents will invest a lot into a roommate functionally that can't feed themselves, to change their diapers, and you do it anyway because you love them. But in addition to our parents, we also have other people in our lives that have invested in us. I mean, the example, I gave a talk last night talking about this, that we all have, if you look at your phone, there's people in our lives that are value extractors. You see their number pop up, they see them messaging you, emailing you, you're like, oh, what does this jackass want now? Everyone, when you say this, you can immediately think of a few names, like, okay, I know, who knows. And also, the other side is there are people that have invested in us in ways that we feel like if they ever need anything, I would do anything to help this person. Oh my goodness. Most of my success comes from the fact that so and so endorsed me, gave me the right introductions, invested their time, money, resources, something that substantially is the reason why I have what I have today. And the idea is that if we can see those high value people, people we would do anything for, what can we do? What decisions can we make that we can have that reputation amongst the people in our lives? Because there are people that are poorer than us, less connected than us, less experienced than us, that we could also be of value to them. We can do things that are totally within our wheelhouse that we don't do. And if we did, some will eventually become influential people themselves. And so that's the idea, is that being more active in the investment in people, and it's a way to appeal to people's self-interest, that to invest in people, ultimately it's long-term selfish. You want to be in a place where you have such a sterling reputation, that you've built and added so much value in so many people's lives, that you will be able to summon help in a variety of fields when needed. Um, and that's, I think, a steady state, that the most powerful and the most successful people, not only do they have a high financial ledger, they also have a high interpersonal ledger. We all know very wealthy people that got that way by being very shady, very aggressively transactional. And those are very fragile places to be, because people can't wait to see you fall. Right? We all know some people that are financially successful, but they're kind of dicks.
Yeah.
And the moment you see them stumble, you're like, good. You just can't wait to stop them on the way down. But you can't now because they're powerful. On the other side, you see people that are successful, and you can't wait to see them win even harder, because you know that they have been a value add to you. And the more they win, the more they'll make sure that everyone they know helps them along their journey. And so we don't think of it in those explicit terms. My idea in the book is to kind of explore it. How can you intentionally cultivate it? Because a high favor bank isn't something that just happens by accident, right? You can have accidentally a lot of money. You just dump a bunch of money in the right shit coin. You inherit a bunch of money, scratch off. You can have lots of money in ways that aren't really earned. There's no way to have a high favor bank that isn't earned. It's like having a good physique, right? You can have all the resources, have good genetics, but if you eat like crap, you're going to eventually have a crappy body. Likewise, a high favor bank, it helps to have resources, it helps to be talented, it helps to have all these things, but you have to earn it. You have to put in the work. You have to invest in people and manage your emotions, and to invest in people in a denomination that's meaningful to them. And so that's the idea, is how do you grow? And then the final chapter of the book is, you spent your lifetime, you've built not only hopefully a financial fortune, but also an interpersonal collection of relationships of people that would do anything for you, all these loyalties. how do you give it to your children? How do you let them inherit not just your financial resources of all the money you didn't spend in your life that will automatically drop to your children because you can list them as your beneficiaries, but also the relationship you cultivated. Because if you have people that you trust your life to, but you don't introduce your children to them, what happens when you're gone? They'll show up at your funeral, say, your father meant everything to me, and I'm sorry for your loss, and your kids will never see him again. And that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And the idea is that you have to intentionally create these introductions, make these relationships. Obviously, they can't have the identical relationship that you have with your inner circle, but they'll have some form of relationship. One, then that will survive you after your absence. And secondly, it gives them a template of how to build same age relationships amongst their peers. Like this is how I've managed to select, vet, and build this relationships. Here's how I learned how not to trust certain people. We all had people that we trusted that betrayed us. It's like, okay, they're never gonna no one will go through life and never experience a betrayal, but at least you can hopefully extract some lessons so that they don't have to learn it in as painful a way that you have, right? As a father, you don't want to see your children suffer, but it's like, how can we what are the ways that we can minimize it by giving them this very detailed roadmap so they're not just flying blind? And that's the idea of the book is a treatise on how to grow this interpersonal ledger in a way that's non, because we all know people that are very transactional. I do for you, and I'm like counting that I did this much for you. You better return this much value exactly back, and if you don't, then we're done. Right? And that's a very tough place. I mean, people who are transactional don't get very far in life. The people that are able to generate surplus and be like, I'm okay with potentially being taken advantage of because I know there's so much abundance in my life that I'm not worried that I got to extract back every single bit of value that I offer others. And if it doesn't happen, then like I'm just going to start hounding you like a collection agent. And I think the generosity, it's a good practice to be in, and ultimately it's to your long-term selfish advantage. And I think that's the whole point of it, is that you're having a long horizon of investing in people, being tactically generous, is a sustainable path to not only like financial success, but also just general happiness. You're able to tap into resources and solve otherwise intractable problems that you can't just simply throw money at.
Mm.
So that's the general idea.
Question. What what inspired you to write about this and motivated it really? Because I feel like maybe it comes from the lack of it.
I think so. I think that, I came to America as an immigrant, and my parents are much more of the study hard, get good grades, get in the best school that you can get into, find the highest paying job. It's approval from institutions. And it's not a criticism, it's just that's their understanding of success. And I can see, and my brother is a better exemplar of that kind of path, and he is very successful in that world. I didn't have I wasn't a good student. I'm much more free form, and so it took me 6 years to graduate university. I've been fired from half the jobs I've ever had. So all the things that they valued, I just wasn't good at it, and I dealt with my own like sense of insecurity, and I found my own path, and I realized that a lot of the alternative successes that I've experienced came from the fact that I was able to cultivate good relationships, even though I don't have a lot of the credentials that someone who goes on the credential ladder would be able to climb those kinds of success trajectories. I nonetheless found a path that was about building, cultivating, growing relationships, and starting from a fairly modest starting position, being able to have people who are very successful consider me an ally, and being able to offer and exchange value despite having significant income differentials and social class differentials. And so the second motivation, I think, is that as an older father, I've realized that, even if we are very healthy, the amount of time we have with our children is diminished. It's just math. And so the motivation of writing a book is also kind of crystallizing a lot of the things that I've learned in a way that is more easy to digest than just a bunch of conversations you have with your parents. And so that was those are the two main motivations that got me to thinking about writing it and codifying it, and then hopefully refining the idea. Because as I've dived into writing it, I think it gave me clear ideas of I've had conversations with people about the topic, and they've given me ideas, stories from their own lives, and various alternative perspectives that I hadn't considered that helped refine the ideas that previously was still very fuzzy in my head. And it's like, oh, this is a way to explain it in a way that if you're new to it, it would make sense, as opposed to just when people hear it, it's all and the immediate response is, oh, it's just being a transactional kind of politician, like, oh, I do for you, you do for me. And that's a very that's a very transactional and very extreme stereotype of it. Right. I view it in the way that, like, think about physical fitness. You guys are young, but I grew up in the 80s, and I remember that the only people that went to the gym on a regular basis were either like professional athletes. They used their body to make money and they needed to get a certain level of performance, or gay men that wanted to look a certain type for aesthetic reasons to improve their dating prospects. And if you were a guy that was like an engineer, a accountant, and you go to the gym, it's like,
It's like
why?
super foreign, yeah.
Right? It was a foreign concept. Like, why would you bother doing this thing? It has nothing to do with, oh, you must be gay. And it's like, that's the attitude, is that the only reason you would go to the gym if you're not using your body to make money is you're trying to look a certain way because you want to appeal to the twinks in, like, whatever. But that was the culture. And so when obviously the culture has shifted now, where you have people in cerebral professions who do weightlifting. Mark Zuckerberg went from being kind of a pasty nerd to like doing MMA, right? There are
Yeah.
archetypes that are available. That didn't exist in the 80s. And so likewise, I think people think about favorite bank. I feel like it's kind of like in the 80s, where when it comes to physical fitness, the only people that were interested were just people who are politicians. You're trying to, like, weasel something out of everybody, and that's what you do. And then certainly they still exist. Obviously, there's still gay men that still lift weights. There's still professional athletes that lift weights for those specific purposes. But weightlifting has a bunch of benefits that everyone else can enjoy as well. Much the same way, growing a favorite bank obviously is useful if you are a politician, if you're a criminal that tries to, like, curry favor with police and whatever. Those exist still. But that same discipline also has a lot of purposes that now I think I want to kind of be part of the cultural shift where, yes, you don't have to be a politician or a salesman or any of those to necessarily benefit from it. And as it becomes more mainstream, I think I'd like to hopefully be one of the people that help influence more widespread acceptance of it. So it's no longer just a niche thing that only people with very specific vocations need. Everyone can benefit from it. And in fact, the benefits cascade across your entire network of people that you love. Just like weightlifting will benefit cerebral professions, people that use their brains to make a living. Nonetheless, if you are lean and muscular, you think more clearly, less brain fog, less time to call in sick. It will literally perform your actual cerebral profession, even though it didn't seem to have an obvious connection. That in the 80s, everyone would just be like, why is an accountant lifting weights? Now it's like, well, of course, good for him. I'm glad he's jacked.
Yeah.
And right.
Well, I actually like the use of the word investment, because I feel like a lot of people in this day and age, just capitalistic society and whatnot, people think of the word investment strictly from a financial
Yes.
perspective. Like, I have my investment vehicle.
Yes.
And so the idea of investing into people
Yes.
is, I think, a very good seed to plant to change somebody's perspective on how they deal with relationships.
Right. You can almost link it to with the times being a short attention span. It's also like a very short term kind of relationship. It's a very short
Right.
type of thinking in general.
And that, I think, is the problem, is that we often have this, and if it's short time horizon, then it's transactional, because if you don't do for me immediately, I think it comes from a sense of insecurity. We've all been taken advantage of at some point, whether it's like you get catfish, you go on a date with a girl that just wants to, like, stick you with a tab for a meal and she has no interest in you. It happens. And part of the point of it is that, just like with investments in the financial world, it's like, if you are terrified of loss, you will never put anything in the middle, but you're never going to have very much either. You will expect that there will be some times that you will invest in people and they will disappoint you. And part of it, I think, is also managing your own emotions, so that when it inevitably happens, you don't immediately, it's just a total waste of time. Just like, guys go on a bad date. Oh, women are all like lying whores and they're all just trying to milk you for money. I'm just going to be an incel. I'm going to jerk off to porn. I'm just going to only hire hookers or whatever. Like, and people have responded that way. And it's, it's a understandable, but an unhealthy overreaction to some person disappointing you. And I think the healthier way is to use it. And that's just how I manage my own emotions as well, is you view it as, I'm buying information. I'm buying information about you as a person, not people in general, but just this particular situation. This person was exploitative or very value extracting. And now I've learned something about you, and I will recalibrate and adjust, but take the emotion out of it. You can still, you're not going to be a sucker and just, oh, I'll just keep like buying this person's stuff and hopefully they'll turn around. Like, they probably won't. and that's okay. But the thing is that nobody will introduce themselves as, I'm a value extracting parasitic piece of shit. No one will ever tell you that. You discover that about people only by letting them at some point disclose their true temperament in an interaction, and then you can kind of recalibrate. And that's the whole point. You're using your generosity also as a way to build a more accurate map of the people in your life. And if you're never generous, you'll never know. Everyone will say they're like very honorable and will do anything for their friends and da da da. And if you take them at face value, you realize that that's just not true. Most people aren't, and that's okay. Most people are transactional. Hopefully, by leading with generosity, you can also discover where the other people are, and that creates its own virtuous cycle. And that's I think the point of it is to give yourself the tools to build a better and more granular and accurate map of your social map. That previously it's just this, like, oh, I've got a lot of friends. Do you really though? If you were in trouble, how many people would actually pick you up from the hospital or from jail? Who are your real allies that would endure a significant level of inconvenience or financial cost or time to do something for your benefit? And as you offer value, you'll realize that there are others who are like that, but this is the only way to really find them. No one would just simply say that. And if they don't know you well enough, they're not really motivated to anyway, right? So that's the thing, is that you have to put something in the middle and expect that occasionally you will stumble across someone who's parasitic or someone who's very transactional, and that's okay. It's part of the price of getting to that ideal steady state where you have this very dense, very loyal inner circle of people who have demonstrated a willingness to do things for others, just as you have demonstrated your willingness to do for others when they couldn't do much for you. And then that's a thing that can be intentionally cultivated. Talking about all this as an idealized state. Obviously, if you start off in a low trust environment where you don't know a lot of people, it's like the 300-pound fat guy that's never lifted a weight in his life. It's like, you could be this, like, it feels out of reach. But as we know, body transformation is a real thing. If someone who's overweight and never touched a barbell in their life takes their fitness seriously, you can do a lot of things with clean eating and lifting in a couple of years. And I think the same is true for relationships. If you take building and investing in people seriously and make good decisions over the course of a few years, your life can be very, very different and absolutely a superior version of it versus what you would have been had you done nothing. And that's, I think, the point of it, is that physical fitness, emotional, interpersonal fitness, these are all like important parts of a successful life, not just I have a lot of money or I have a lot of followers or whatever. They're important. I'm not saying they're unimportant, but if you don't have the relationship component, you end up being one of these very lonely, wealthy people. I know a lot of them. It's a tough place to be at that point, because then if you're just simply very rich and you have no relationships, I feel like the vision I see is like you're like a dragon sleeping on top of a giant pile of gold coins, and everyone that comes to your cave is like, you're trying to steal my shit.
Yeah.
And you're just defensive, and everyone talking, you want my, imagine like being Elon Musk, any of these very wealthy people. Like, literally everyone you meet is poorer than you. And how do you figure out who to trust? Because everyone's trying to chisel off a piece of their empire at that point. And if you don't have anyone you trust, that's a very lonely place to be, even if you're wealthy. Imagine, like, with even being middle class here, if we go to the third world, we are unimaginably wealthy to someone who's living on $2 or $3 a day. But if you go there, everyone's going to kiss your ass because they all want a piece of what you've got.
Yeah.
Functionally, you have a relationship with them the way billionaires would have with us. Do you trust any of them? They tell
That's
you, you're so
interesting.
handsome, you're so funny, da da da. Can you trust anything coming out of their mouths? Yes, they'll totally kiss your ass, but you know exactly what they want. And so that's the life that I think a lot of billionaires have, unless they're able to have people they trust. Like, yes, I am 1,000 times richer than you, but I will trust you with my life. Like, imagine being in that position. I think a lot of the successful people, they do have that. But so it's not just simply that I trust you because we're around the same social class. It's because I trust you because you've had the occasion to burn me, and I see that you haven't. I see that you conducted yourself honorably, but you only know these things by having those kinds of exchanges of value, and that deepens and strengthens over time. And that's something that, it's a muscle like anything else that can be exercised, or you can just let it atrophy. And I think the more successful you are, the more important that is. Because if you're just rich and you don't trust anybody, then super
Yeah.
lonely existence, right?
To go back to you said take the emotion out of it.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like there's a difficulty within society for most people to build a bridge between taking it out and, well, I want to say a lot of people get dissociation type of thinking at that point.
Please clarify. Go ahead.
They completely take emotion out, and they take it as don't feel emotion.
Right. You're right. So I think
I disagree with that.
I'm. It's an understandable but poor coping mechanism. It's okay to be disappointed, right? We are all disappointed by people in our lives sometimes. Sometimes family members, they will do things that annoy us, frustrate us. I think the idea is it's okay to feel the emotion, but not let it poison you. You can, and that's the thing, is processing it in a healthy fashion. Like even people that we love sometimes will do things that disappoint us, annoy us. Like, yeah, you know what, that, and to articulate it. And me as a father, I thought, we teach our own children this, like, hey, it's okay to feel an emotion, but hitting someone is bad. You can say, hey, I'm frustrated. I wanted this thing and I didn't get it. So, or I was expecting this person that I invested in to be trustworthy and not steal the joint account that we had. I'm disappointed. I'm very mad at it. But I'm not going to say, well, you know what? Every partner is a piece of shit. I will only do business by myself forever. Or you broaden the thing. Like the funny example I always make is that my wife's a teacher, and so she's every year there's always the worst behaved kid in every classroom. And so every year the list of baby names is shortened by one name. Like, oh, I never want to hear that name again. Every single person named Carl is a piece of shit. It's like, okay, well, obviously not true, but the moment you hear that name, you're like, oh, right? And there's probably names in our lives that there's like, you got burned badly by someone with a particular name. Every time that person could be the nicest person in the world, super generous, honest, doesn't matter. I hear that name, I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, what are you playing? Oh my God.
What do you think? What do
I
you
recognize it, be silly about it, but it's like, yeah.
All liars.
Yes.
what do you think pushes people to that sort of extreme thinking?
It's an overcorrection. Like, because we're as human beings, we're trying to protect ourselves from hurt. We got hurt, and so we're over broadening a bad experience. The bad experience is what it is. You can contain it and be like, hey, this particular person he betrayed me, he stole from me, whatever. And and to feel that emotion, be disappointed. It's okay to be disappointed, but to contain that negative emotion around that experience, not globalize it unnecessarily. Right? Not every person named Carl is a piece of shit. Anyone listening to named Carl, sorry, we're just using the name
Carl.
randomly. It's not there's plenty of nice Carls out there. There's also plenty of shitty ones, but it's just an example. And that's, I think, the point is to intelligently manage your own emotions. Not don't feel it emotions, because it's impossible. You're just asking you you're forcing yourself to live a lie at that point. I'm not mad. You are, right? It's okay. No, it hurts. It hurts to be betrayed by someone you trusted. It hurts to be stolen from, to be lied to be betrayed. And it's totally okay to be angry about that betrayal. And then also to kind of process in a healthy way to say, okay, this doesn't mean that everyone's bad. It means that particular person is bad to you. And who knows what's going on in their life? Maybe they just went through, right? And that's the thing, is to obviously protect yourself from being hurt by that person further, and figure out ways to globalize, to take the right lesson from it. What are things was there anything that I did prior where I ignored a red flag that leading up to it, where I could have contained the damage, but I didn't, right? Those are the things that I've spent my time as well after a disappointing experience. Are there things that I ignored or glossed over because I projected my hopes onto somebody when they haven't really earned that trust? Was there anything I could have done? And so being more analytical about your emotions, to feel it, and then to be like, okay, what's done is done. The damage is done. I can't undo it. I can't sulk about it. If I globalize it, that doesn't help me either. What best decision can I make from this point forward based upon the cost I already paid? I already took a hit from whatever betrayal it was. How can I then get the most value out of this bad experience? And I think that's a healthier way to process it than just say, didn't hurt.
And it's such a simple path too, instead of going through all the bullshit.
Yeah, because
associated
then
with the
it
other.
goes into an identity shift where
Yeah.
you identify as, I am just this like lonely single man that's going to do everything on his own for the rest of my life.
Good luck.
Lone wolf, Sigma, male.
Mindset.
Which doesn't really work. That's the thing. It's a fantasy, right? It doesn't even work. But it's a coping mechanism. That's if you recognize it as a coping mechanism, then you realize, okay, that's silly. Every successful person has to trust somebody, and that's how you go through life, is you have to trust the right people. And how do you learn how to trust the right people? By trusting the wrong people. And then you go, okay, well, don't do that again. What is the correct thing? What is the correct lesson to extract from it? rather than just reflexively going, I am disappointed, therefore I'm going to overcorrect their direction. A good friend of mine who he's married now, he's very happy, but for a while he tends to overreact to negative dating experiences where somebody would lie to him, cheat on him, and all women are whores, all women are terrible. I'm just gonna, he's a successful guy. I'm just gonna like hire hookers and not deal with like women that betray me, right? And it's an understandable reaction to being disappointed, but also he denied himself years of potentially happy, positive, mutually trusting relationships by that overcorrection. Certainly, if you never go on dates, if you only hire prostitutes, you've contained the amount at which others can betray you, for sure. But also and what healthy woman wants to date a guy who hires prostitutes? Very few. And so you're creating this thing where you're limiting your downside, but you also dramatically cut off a lot of upside possibilities. And but that comes from a sense of loss aversion. You're terrified of loss because if you really love somebody and they betray you, it hurts. It absolutely hurts. And and I think that's something that that comes from acknowledging our emotions, not being in denial about it.
It also ties into the whole, like, I mean, young men love the Stoic philosophy stuff on Instagram.
Well, yeah, thanks to Peaky Blinders too.
Yeah, but it's a bastardization of what the Stoics actually discussed. Like, Marcus Aurelius, these guys, they weren't like emotionless robots.
Correct.
And I think that the social media has done a number on young men's minds in terms of that whole thing.
Yeah, I think it's a cope because we can see that an overly emotional person is there's something inherently unmasculine about a guy who just loses his shit, right? You stub your toe. God damn it, right? The people that like scream and anger and break things because their football team loses, whatever. It's You look at it, you're okay, you're very cringe, haha, you're so emotional over something, they don't care about you. And then people overcorrect the other way. Well, I nothing affects me. I'm just like this very
I'm
like
a leaf
zen,
in the wind,
right?
no
Yeah.
emotion.
Yeah.
It's a cope. You're creating this fake character in reaction to this obviously negative archetype, and and again, it's an understandable reaction, but it's not one that's healthy for you, because first of all, you're LARPing. You're not really emotionless anyway. You're an emotional human. All of us are emotional, and now if you inject a level of dishonesty even to yourself, now you have to live up to this fake version, this emotionless robot that you're cosplaying online or to whatever communities you're part of. You're not able to feel the actual emotions underneath it, and at some level you're lying. And I think having a high truth preference is so important, because it's okay to feel negative emotions, like, I trusted the wrong person, I'm super disappointed, I wish this person could have done this differently, I really love this girl and she burned me. To say these things and to feel that disappointment, and then say, I still believe that there are good people out there, and I'm continuing my effort to find the right person, learn the right lessons from this. That's, I think, the healthiest way to do it. And it comes from a sense of self-mastery, so that you're not in denial while at the same time not going into this very emotional, overly wear your emotions on your sleeve, and it's just like that archetype is bad. And I think that the overcorrection of the direction doesn't help. It's fake and it's deceptive, and ultimately you're lying to yourself, which is the ultimate, I think, self-betrayal. And I think a lot of people, they spend a lot of their lives in that sort of like overreaction. Most of these like self-proclaimed Stoics are probably people who were very badly disappointed by somebody in their lives, and that's their imperfect way of processing that trauma. And it doesn't serve them well, and that's why they have to LARP online. If you're genuinely happy, you don't need to go and pretend you're happy online, right? That's one of the jokes we always talk about, is how like the more someone talks about their relationship on Instagram, the more likely they're
The
not
more
well, right?
pictures,
We're so
the
happy.
less-
Oh my god, I found my soulmate. Oh, look at how much cute we are. And the more you start doing that, the more I'm like, sus, bro.
and people
I don't know
intuitively can
about
feel
that.
that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just feel and and so being happy, being contained it's a discipline. It's a constant, I have my own. We work on things together in a couple, two imperfect human beings bumping against each other. You're gonna have, even the best relationship will have trouble, and it's okay. I accept that you are an imperfect human being trying your best. You accept that I'm an imperfect being trying my best. Hopefully, the love we have for each other is able to kind of smooth over the friction that occasionally comes from that. And that's okay. And you don't need to go through all that. I don't talk about my problems online and I hit a da 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 da.
I think you might relate to this as well, because I certainly do. Have you ever felt like, let's say there's a very down period in your life, things are going shitty. Have you ever felt some sort of pleasure from actually going through that difficult process in terms of like sitting with the negative emotion? Because you know at a certain point that it will lead to the evolution of your character.
Like there's some joy and sadness type of.
Exactly.
I, I'm more happiness biased, so it does bum me out.
I'm not a masochist.
I know.
keep in mind.
I get hurt me harder, daddy. No, 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 no. But I think of it like the soreness after like a hard workout, I guess. It's sore and it doesn't feel fun, but you know that it's not like, oh, I'm permanently injured because of this thing. It's more like, okay, after this hard workout and I'm sore, I'm going to eventually get stronger. It's not enjoyable in the moment, but you can take the long horizon. Just like, if you have a bunch of money, you want to invest it, that means I can't buy this thing that I really want right now. Ooh, and whatever. It's like, yep, you don't get to buy it right now. And I'm intentionally holding back on consumption because I know that there will be more resources that I can deploy for something else I want that I currently can't afford. And that's kind of how I view these sort of short term, but to take that long horizon view instead of just like, I want this thing and I can't buy it and I'm just so pissed off and now I missed out on. It'd be like, yeah, I'm intentionally choosing to trade current consumption and current pleasure for future larger things that are currently out of my window of affordability. And a lot of it just it's being able to reframe things in a way that's to your long-term health, long-term emotional health. Because I think we're very short-term, and there's always something to expend your resource on right now, right? If the people will always be happy to sell you something, whether it's like short-term happiness or drugs or consumption, but a lot of those, the price you pay now means you're denying your future self higher levels of production, of consumption, and whatnot. So having that long horizon, visualize a 10-year-old version of you. What would that person like the previous self to do? Like we can all look backward and say, oh, I wish I bought Bitcoin when I was like 15. Sure. Didn't happen, but remember, one day you will be 45, 55, whatever. What would that person wish you were doing right now? And express compassion, be selfish for that person's benefit. Like if I could do more, if I can, I don't feel like going to the gym, I want to go anyway. I don't really want to, I just want to wallow in being mad about the situation, but I've got this business opportunity right now that if I don't take it, I'm just going to miss out on X dollars of earnings. I'll grit my teeth and do it. Like all those things. Remember, think about the most intense negative emotion you felt like 5 years ago. Some intense betrayal, something that you just was filled with sadness. How do you feel about it now? Does it still sting in the same magnitude? Probably not. You're just like, oh yeah, that was really shitty. And that was it.
Mm.
That's about how bad it feels. No matter you broke your leg, you lost your job, had a horrible argument with your parents, whatever, right? And it's like, yeah, that was really shitty. And that's it. And whatever shitty thing you feel right now will probably be viewed in the same way 5 years from now. So understand it that it does feel shitty in the moment. Don't be in denial about it, but just understand that this will also be a memory one day. And what can I do that will also improve the life of that person 5, 10 years from now? Don't drink yourself. Oh, I'm mad, so I'm just gonna drink a bottle and drive drunk, or I'm gonna do right. Certain reactions in emotionally volatile moments will just buy yourself more trouble downstream. Other things you can do, be like, yeah, I'm really gonna be sad and pissed off. And so that my wife and I, we have a great communication where sometimes I'll just go home and be like, listen, I got 5% left on my battery. It's not I don't love you. I just have very little to give right now. So please give me some space because I'm just going to be very selfish for the next like 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever. And explicit communicate versus just taking it out on people that you love. Like, I'm going to have a shitty day. I'm not going to tell you why. I'm just going to be like a dick to everyone around me. Now all of a sudden you're making them suffer because they didn't even do, and they're forced to absorb your negative energy because you're dealing with some legit emotionally heavy shit. And that's not a great way to live, but a lot of people live that way. And that's why and then the people that you love end up suffering unnecessarily. Whereas I can just give them a head warning. And likewise, when I hear, that someone else has a bad day, tell me what's going on. Or if you choose not to share, that's fine. Just tell me, I don't have a lot for you. Okay. We'll work around that. And there may come a day when I'm going to need to come home with absolutely nothing and need to be left alone and taken care of. And that back and forth, we have enough trust where these are things that we can just simply communicate without lashing out. So I feel like growing up in a volatile household, I know people when they had a bad day, they'll just lash out, and it sucks because you're just on the receiving end of it, and especially as a kid, we just copy paste what my parents did, and then that becomes your template, right? You see, like in sports, parents who take their kids, and then the kid loses a point, and the fathers lose their shit. It's like this is literally little league. There are literally no stakes here. They're angry. They're yelling. You're a piece of shit. How could you miss that pass? It was so easy there.
Serious unresolved
You're
trauma.
right, and it's like and it's easy to like look at the dad and you're so dumb. It's like you realize that that's what he experienced as a kid. He's just copy pasting what he learned one generation prior. They're just repeating the trauma and kicking it forward. So all of us, I think, especially as parents, is how can we interrupt that chain of trauma so we can create a new existence of like, hey, you missed that shot. That must be really frustrating. I'm invested in your long-term success. I'm not invested in the outcome of this game. This game means nothing. You're gonna forget this game by the time you're like 15 years old. But the feeling is real. Wow, it really sucks. Your team was counting on you and you totally whiffed the ball. That must really suck. How does it feel? Wow, that sucks. Let's go have some ice cream and talk about it. And being able to offer that calm, like, base that they can always that they can lean on is very reassuring. And I think that's the kind of parent that I hope to become. I hope that my children will also kind of copy that template, to feel emotions, but also understand that they're temporary, understand it, genuinely feel it, and then manage it in a way that doesn't damage everyone else around you.
It sounds like if someone's on the outside of someone else that's going through something, you have the ability, since you know the formula at this point,
Yeah.
to buy them time.
Yeah.
That's why you get them to talk about it and do
Yeah.
this. We'll go grab ice cream. It's another hour.
Yeah.
You're getting them as far away from the moment
Yeah.
that it happened. And it's kind of, that's really mathematically what's really happening, is that you're spending the time for you to get over
in a
it.
productive way, and it gives them a template of how to deal with negative emotions. Like this is
Massively
this is a
healthy.
healthy way to deal with the inevitable sadness that come from things in life. Whether sometimes it's completely not your fault, there's just bad circumstances. Sometimes it's bad and it's your fault, and you should feel bad because you let your family down or whatever, right? And that's both are just part of being human, and to embrace the fact that all those are part of the human experience, and give them permission. Because I think the problem is that if you don't give people permission to be imperfect, now you're training your children to lie. Didn't hurt. It's okay. Whatever. And once you have that bad habit ingrained in your brain, that starts to poison everything else you do. If you can't even be honest with yourself, like that, I'm disappointed. I'm sad. I really love this girl. No, nothing. That didn't matter, man. They're all whores anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like if you really internalize these terrible and obvious lies, your whole wiring in your own brains, you're not able to process information in a healthy manner. And so that's why I think it's super important to have a good truth preference, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's embarrassing, right? It's humiliating to want something and not get it. It's humiliating to be betrayed by somebody you trusted. So we'd rather so to avoid that negative emotion, we lie and we say, no, I saw that shit coming. Did you?
And that's where the biggest opportunity for growth is. Like if you can have that truth preference when it's most embarrassing, when you take the biggest hit. I mean, the amount of reflection that you can have from that opportunity is massive.
Huge.
Yeah.
But you got to use it in a healthy way, and that's what we're hoping to do as parents. And so that's kind of the objective for us, is to kind of lead with the family in that way, and also explore these ideas when it comes to interpersonal relationships, because ultimately all of us, we get to where we are by the relationships we have. And the better we understand the world, ourselves, and others' emotions, the better we can navigate it. We have a better and more accurate map of the world, and then we know how to use a good map to navigate correctly. Whereas if you have a bad map of the world, you're just going to keep making mistakes.
And this event that you threw,
Yes.
that you put together, is like the perfect example of what you're talking
Of
about.
investing and
Yeah.
seeing the value in others and,
Yeah.
and showing off your own value.
So many
Yes.
cool people, so many cool conversations.
I'm really,
and-
really pleased that we
Yeah.
would be part of it. And we're here in beautiful Healdsburg, up on a hill. The eggs we ate were like harvested from a farm, just like about 100 yards that way. It's a lot of fun. I think I want to do more of these things as a way to invite people into that mindset where we're not just all in our little silos and everything is transactional. And I think that's what I'm hoping others will take from both the book and a philosophy that I think will improve the lives of their own existence as well as the people they love, and increase their own level of success, happiness, everything. Everything cascades forth from improving the quality of your relationships and managing your emotions intelligently.
Kai, thank you so much for
My
being on
pleasure.
here again.
True masterclass, by the way. This was our best one yet, I'm telling
Thank
you.
you. I'm really
Telling you.
pleased. I'm leveling up myself. So these are all things that I'm slowly coming to. And so that, and the point, the discipline of writing a book also helps you focus your thoughts so that it's not just a bunch of jumbled, like, but it's like, oh, you have to present it in the sequence, make people like walk people through this thing, and hopefully change a few minds, improve people's lives, make everyone happy, and hopefully make some money for myself as well. I mean, we're not monks here. We like nice stuff, and so it's a person with no resources and like is still going to be in a tough spot. You need resources in order to do things, and so but do it in a way where it's a win-win and everyone feels good about the journey versus like the adversarial way of making money, which is let's see who can chisel more money out of each other. It's all like negative, and that's a tough way to go through life. And I know people who've made substantial fortunes that way. They tend to live very lonely lives, and they know that they're sitting on a shady fortune that will likely be taken by an even bigger shark when the time comes. And that's a very insecure way to go through existence, and not one that I have any interest in. Pleasure. Thank
Thank
you
you again
so much.
for coming on. And
I had a great time, and I rock on. Subscribe to the 2 a.m. podcast. I've been a long-time guest, and I would love to see their numbers go up. So please do share with your friends in social media as well.
Thank you, guys. You know where to
Cheers.
follow us. Peace.
Take care.